Chapter 13. In Their Own Little World. Martin's words haunted August all the way to Ella's estate. He hadn't thought about the years after she stopped responding for such a long time, preferring instead to let them lie neglected in the back of his mind. He knew now that Ella had been a child who was in no state to communicate, but he had been a child too. It had hurt. It had hurt beyond words when she hadn't written, and when Lady Tremaine had told him she never spoke of him. Their friendship had wilted like flowers, forgotten in a vase, rotting as the weeks went by until it was finally little more than dust. It had taken years to be clean of the feelings of betrayal and failure. August groaned. When had he become this fatalistic? "Martin's rubbing off on me," he muttered to the lockbox. "I can't show up to Ella's with a head full of thoughts like bad poetry." "Why not?" "I love bad poetry. It's much more interesting than good poetry, because someone somewhere thought it was good enough to be written down." August spun around. Ella stood on a little path leading off the main road to her estate, holding a candle aloft. The flickering light made her smile look like laughter. "I want to catch you before you arrived so that Lady Tremaine or my stepsisters didn't see you," she said, and nodded for him to join her. "You know, stepmother says poetry is literature for people too dramatic to read." He joined her on the little footpath. "What does she say about literature?" "A hobby for people too indolent to attempt something that will actually make them look smart," she said. "She's very opinionated." "That's one way to put it," he said, and she snorted. "Does she think well of anything?" "She's quite fond of cats, and that's about it. She likes how independent they are." Ella looped her right arm through his left, the warmth of her body stifling in the summer night. A drifting leaf caught in her hair, and he plucked it away, fingers itching to tangle in the strands. The windows of the chateau, glowing a pale gold, came into view, and two small figures paced before one of them. August could only assume the dramatically gesturing one was Gisela. She would probably make a good actress. Pity that wasn't an acceptable pursuit for her. "You know, I cannot wait until all three of us are away from Lady Tremaine," said Ella, staring up at the window. "Gisela will always see me as the stepsister she ordered around, I think. But that means she'll try to rub her achievements into my face." "Why are you saying that like it's a good thing?" asked August. "Because the only way she knows how to do that is to show off, and that will mean she'll invite me to a fancy luncheon every few months." She sighed and leaned against him. "Fruits taste so much better when they're shaped like flowers." "Speaking of," said August, shifting so that he could reach into his coat and pull out a slim box. "A gift, considered an apology for showing up without warning and vanishing so quickly." "Thank you." She peeked into the small box and grinned. "Figs! Thank you." He had stopped by the market to buy them on his way here, knowing Ella would never buy them for herself. He knew how much she loved them. "This is perfect. I have some cheese pastries for us to nibble on," she said, and walked faster. The little kitchen came into view, and Bruno ambled out of it, yawning. He wolfed when he caught sight of Ella and lopped over to her. She ruffled his fur and kissed the top of his head. "Have you kept Lucifer out of the kitchen?" she asked. He huffed and licked her hand. "Good boy," said Ella. The pair settled down on the kitchen steps, the tray of cheese pastries, chunks of cold bread, and the figs between them. Bruno lay down at Ella's feet and sniffed about August until he slipped the old dog some cheese while Ella wasn't looking. She relayed how Madame Barton and Blaise were doing after their eventful day. "It's good that it probably won't affect anyone else," she said, studying the lockbox. "I don't think Fresna could handle anyone else forgetting." August tilted the lockbox on its side and tested the strength of the hinges. Breaking them probably wouldn't help. "Have you tried her birthday?" Ella asked and prodded it. He nodded, suddenly aware of how foolish he must look struggling to open a box. He ran a hand through his hair and shrugged. "And the day she came back to Fresna, along with a whole host of other 6-digit numbers. The lock mechanism is behind the dials? Ella asked, pulling the lockbox into her lap. She pressed her nose to the front and stared at the slim space between the dials. I bet I could fit one of my smaller needles through here. Any needle thin enough probably wouldn't be strong enough to move the pins, said August. The way wisps of her hair curled against the nape of her neck made his fingers itch to touch them. I don't want you to break all your needles for this. She turned her head, cheek resting on the lock. It's only a needle, but it's yours, and I can have a locksmith look at it tomorrow evening, said August. Her expression faltered, and he tried to quickly change the topic, offering Bruno a fig. Do you